really were.
Right. But I guess here's my thing. Moving on quickly when you're in, this messy love triangle situation, relationship thing, that's one thing. But getting married and or engaged so quickly, that makes me as a crime junkie, just wonder if there's any legal reason for either of these things to happen. You don't have to testify against a spouse legally.
Sure. Yeah, but because I kind of had that thought too. But if you're going to jump there, that would mean that a spouse was probably involved, right? Neither of you could testify against one another.
Right.
So to believe that maybe is the reason that any of these people are jumping in this relationship, we'd almost have to think that Kim and her new husband and Jeannie and her new fiance were somehow all in on this, which I think is super unlikely. So then you have to say, okay, well, then of the two of them, are they both in this situation? One's innocent, one's guilty. Who's more guilty? But the thing is, maybe none of them. And maybe this is all a red herring. But what I find really interesting about Marky's interview, the biggest thing that came out to me beyond the new relationships, is that she said that after Jeramy went missing, Kim actually took his computer and was, quote, reluctant to give it to police. And when they did finally get it, files were missing. And I don't know what exactly, what files were missing. And you can't even prove that Kim was the one who deleted them.
Right.
It's just all...
But it's still, very side-eye.
Strange, right? So strange. But, don't think you can solve it just yet. This is all circumstantial, and the strangeness is just beginning. Marky Davis says she has, with her own ears, heard one of the tapes where Jeramy is talking about another local missing man named Aaron. This is a guy that went missing a couple of years before, but apparently, Jeramy allegedly says, if I ever go missing, something bad happened to me.
Did he know this Aaron guy?
So there's no proof that they were friends, but he obviously knew this guy's name, right? If he's on a recording talking about it. And granted, he could have totally gotten this from a newspaper. And I could see that maybe being a thing, because what's wild to me is how oddly similar their disappearances were and how strange of a connection they shared. So according to Joe Paris for KTVB, Aaron went missing from Boise in 2004, around 7:30 p.m., just before he had dropped off his 3-year-old son with his mother. And now Aaron and she weren't together at the time. This was just part of their custody arrangement. And this is the first thing that to me is the same. They're both around the same age. They both have a kid. And so, when you talk about did he maybe just see the name in the newspaper and saw some similarities to himself and it was just an offhanded thing? Maybe. But to go back to Aaron's story for just a quick second, according to that same article, Aaron takes a call from his roommate at 7:15. When the call comes in, he was on the line with someone else. And he said, listen, I'm near my house. Then this call comes in. His roommate says hey, I need you to come home really quick. And then poof, no one sees or hears from Aaron again.
Not even his roommate? Didn't he just call and ask him to come home?
Well, his roommate says that he didn't see him, but it doesn't totally add up to people who look at this case because according to the Charlie Project website, his car ends up being there at his house, the car that he would have been driving. So it got there somehow. Now, I don't want to dive too deep down the rabbit hole of Aaron's story because we could get lost. His story has a complicated list of players just like Jeramy's. A number of people who do weird or shady things before, even and after he goes missing. But here is why Jeramy and Aaron are so often connected, because it's more than just, they were kind of the same age. They both had a 3-year-old when they went missing.
They're from the same area, stuff like that, yeah.
According to Marky Davis's investigation and what she said on Ed Densel's podcast, they both had a connection to Jeannie.
Wait, how?
Well, in another episode of Unfound, Ed Densel spoke directly to Aaron's mom. It's a long interview, 3 hours, but we'll link out to it on our website if you want to hear her tell Aaron's full story. But Aaron was connected to a woman named Constance. Constance worked with Jeannie at the same law practice. Now, there are comments that I found online connecting Aaron and Jeannie directly together in the same forgery mess that Jeannie was tied up in. And Aaron's mom confirmed it, saying that she basically wanted Aaron to lie in court for her.
Okay, but did he?
As far as I understand, he went missing before that ever happened, which I think when people hear that, they might look at that as suspicious. But and maybe I'm like losing it, but I almost see this as potential evidence against Jeannie's involvement, right?
Right, because she needed him. Why would she get rid of him?
From what I understand, he was like, no, I'm not going to lie for you. Which, if someone's not going to do it, they actually could be another witness and you look even worse. But let's say by some stretch of the imagination that she did have a hand in Aaron's disappearance because he wouldn't testify against her. Why wait then until after you serve time and get out on parole to make Jeramy disappear? Because, he was the real crux of the case. He was the main witness. He was the one that had the recordings. So, if you're making people disappear so you don't have to go to jail, you got rid of the wrong guy. That doesn't make sense.
Yeah, but, maybe there's more of a connection than we even know about if Jeramy is on this voice recording talking about Aaron's disappearance.
Maybe, but we have no way of knowing without Aaron here and without Jeramy.
Okay, but would someone like Kim know? She knew about Jeramy's plan to kind of trap Jeannie. I think maybe she'd know more about this whole ordeal, how it went down, who was involved.
Well, she might have, but we may never know because of what happened to her. This episode was made possible by Rory. You guys, I'm officially 32 now, and over the last couple of years, I've started to notice my skin changing. Specifically, I'm already starting to see signs of sun damage on my face. I'm not someone who's trying to never get old, that's gonna happen, but I do like to do little things to take care of my skin and give it all the love and care it deserves. And the best thing I found to keep my skin looking young is Rory. Rory is a digital health clinic just for women that can help treat all your skincare concerns, from breakouts to redness, or in my case, sunspots. Getting started is simple. Complete a free online consultation at hellorory.com/crimejunkie, and you'll hear back from a U.S. licensed healthcare professional within 24 hours. If appropriate, they'll prescribe a personalized skincare treatment plan that works just for you with free 2-day shipping. There are no commitments, and you can cancel anytime. Just go to hellorory.com/crimejunkie to try your personalized treatment for just $5. That's hellorory.com/crimejunkie for a free consultation and $5 for your first order. That is a slam-banging deal. hellorory.com/crimejunkie to get your first order for $5. Juliet Meir reported for NBC News that in July 2016, Kim took her own life.
What?
Yeah. I obviously have no idea what was going on in Kim's life or what led to this. When you look at this in the context of the case, nothing really new or groundbreaking happened in Jeramy's case from the time he went missing until 2016 when she took her own life. And some people like to look at this as a sign of guilt, but I don't know. I also see a really hurt woman, a man she spent at least a decade with went missing. She was married and divorced and then married again. And I can see that being too much. And right, I don't have all the details surrounding her death. So unfortunately, people are just left to speculate. But Kim's death wasn't the only thing that happened in 2016. Jeannie was making waves too. Her new husband, a man who was decades her senior, whom she met on a sugar daddy site named Michael, tried to kill her.
Oh my God.
According to Kevin Jenkins, who was reporting for The Spectrum. Now, this guy, Michael, he too was an attorney, but still a licensed one, unlike her. And Kevin Jenkins reported that he pled guilty to trying to shoot her in the middle of the night after some kind of disturbance. Now, the case got really messy. Outside of any official legal proceeding, Michael allegedly says that it was self-defense or Jeannie was the aggressor. But in a court of law, he pled guilty and said it was a result of mental illness and or paranoia from a mixed bag of prescription drugs. He was on a sleeping pill or an anxiety pill, something like that. And it caused him to kind of, he says, get paranoid and snap. Now, when Jeannie is asked about it, she doesn't want to talk about it. That Spectrum article from 2016 said she didn't show up for court and could have been held in contempt, though I don't know if she ever was. A quote from the detective on the case reported, she said, quote, "We always had this unwritten rule between us that our problems stayed with us. We don't get outside law enforcement involved. We'll take care of it in the house. So when he went to the police, I was kind of surprised," end quote.
So, I mean, on one hand, if Jeannie is, a victim of domestic violence, this isn't that out of the ordinary. A lot of people in abusive relationships do have this kind of, we'll handle our marital problems at home kind of mentality. So I can kind of see that being this, like you said, unspoken agreement. And, nothing from this case in 2016 proves that Jeannie had anything to do with Jeramy going missing.
Yeah.
It's just like this strange footnote.
I mean, it's all just strange. There have been no significant developments with Jeramy or Aaron's cases in years. Even the last meaningful reporting that was done was in 2018. The one by NBC, they did this big article, and then that's when Ed Densel did his two-parter on the Unfound podcast. And really, there's been nothing since then. Nobody's even talking about these men. So 2 fully grown men have seemingly vanished into thin air, and they left behind families that are still mourning their loss every day. And I especially think about Jeramy's daughter, Mackenzie. I mean, she spent her whole life with her dad's disappearance looming over her, no answers. And then she lost her mom in this really terribly tragic way. And I can't help but feel like there is someone out there who has the answers, whether they were involved or someone confided in them after the fact. There are a lot of puzzle pieces already put together, but there are some big ones still missing. So if you have one of those pieces, you can submit a tip anonymously at crimestoppersswidaho.org. And if you're as caught up in the web of this case as I am and you really want to dive into it more, I highly recommend checking out the 2-parter on the Unfound podcast about Aaron and Jeramy. They're both called Cause and Effects, Part 1 and 2. And it is definitely the most comprehensive accounts of these cases told directly from people either related to the victims or the investigations. And there are tons of extra details that I couldn't even go into. I think the work Ed is doing to get this information on these underreported cases out there, it's so important. So again, if you have any information on what happened to Jeramy Burt or Aaron Barnard, you can submit a tip anonymously at crimestoppersswidaho.org. We will link out to all the source material for this episode on our website, crimejunkiepodcast.com.
And be sure to follow us on Instagram at Crime Junkie Podcast.
We'll be back next week with a brand new episode. Crime Junkie is an Audio Chuck production. So, what do you think, Chuck? Do you approve?